Alright, so Grandpa, I just wanted to ask you some questions about World War II. So how did you get drafted?
By being old enough to get drafted. They needed me in the Army, or in the they needed me. But what do you mean by old enough? If you had to be 18 at the time, and they drafted you, that's it.
They just drafted you?
I didn't have any choice. I didn't have anything to say I can't go. As long as you're physically able, they take you.
Didn't you want to go for a little before you finally did get drafted?
I tried to join the Navy, but I was working in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, and there they said, "We need you in the Navy Yard because you're a machinist." So that was it. So I couldn't go, and then 3 months later, I got drafted. So I went into the Army.
You got drafted with your brother, right?
Who?
With your brother. So when you got, so what did you first do, like when you finally got drafted?
I went in, and then they said, okay, instead of 13 weeks of basic training, I only got 7 weeks of basic training because I was going to go to a special school to learn how to be a machinist. So you learn how to take things apart, put them back together again, whatever you wanted. So I went to a training school in Baltimore for 3 months. And after that, when I came out of the school, 3 days later, I was on a boat going to Africa. And I said, what's in Africa? A training camp or something? Who knows? No one seemed to know. And then when I got off the boat, we got on the 40 and 8s. Those were box cars for 40 men or 8 horses. And it was a 5-day trip to Bizerte, where the war was still going on. The Germans were still fighting out of Bizerte. And so after I got there, the war ended. So I went back to Oran again for 5 more days on the boxcars. And I waited around there for a couple of days. And then in the interim, they invaded Sicily. Sicily was a 30-day deal. So what happened was, when the war ended in Sicily, we then invaded southern Italy. Salerno was the name of the area that we went in. And so we went to Salerno, and that's when they told us, okay, you guys, there were about 4 or 5 of us, he says, I'm going to go join the 36th Infantry Division as in combat engineers. So I went there to the 36th Division. And they were still battling the invasion. And so we went there, and then we learned how to blow up bridges, build bridges, do whatever you needed as an engineering group. Destroy property, repair property, and then I was looking for a depot, but I wasn't, so we were combat engineers. So we went in to clear up minefields and make everyone happy. And that was the way the war went. And then after that happened, we were up on the top of a mountain blowing holes for the infantry so they could dig a foxhole, because there was too much rock there on the top of the hills. So we blew holes with dynamite so that they could then loosen up the ground and dig a hole. And that's when I found out we were being shelled, and so we evacuated. And I slid down the hill into a dead body, and it was a German soldier where his head had been blown off. So I said, boy, you can get hurt here. And that was it for the time being. Any more questions?
Didn't you say, like, you told me before that you went in a minefield and that when they were dropping the shells, all the mines went off and...
Oh, that was later. What happened is, after 11 months in Italy, where we did a lot of demolition and clearing up minefields, we had the, what do you call it? I'm trying to think where it was. Okay, so we took Rome. That was 11 months after we were in Italy. We had to walk 21 hours to try and catch the Germans. And we could never catch them. They had walked faster than we could run. And so after they left, I figured, oh, we're going to go home. And then they turned around and they said, no, you guys are going to invade southern France. So we invaded southern France. And we had our problems as far as invasion goes. We couldn't get off, couldn't land our craft on the beach because as we got close, the shells were bouncing around in the water next to us. So we evacuated, and then we finally went into on the sea beach. That was the last beach available to us. We landed there, and then I ran ashore from there. We had 21 feet, 21, what the heck would you call it? 21 feet to run, and I had a plastic bag over my rifle. And as I ran, I tried to pull a bag off, and it just stretched. The plastic stretched and stretched. So when I stopped running, then I stopped and I took the plastic bag off. Okay. Then we had the Germans were in a bar, and we chased them out, and we stayed in the bar. What else did I do? Then we stayed in southern France for 2 months. Then we landed in August, so in October, November, I guess it was 2 months that I got, Armistice Day was what? November, November 11th?
Well...
Yeah, Armistice Day was November 11th. So anyway, we had cleared the minefield, and a shell came in and hit the pile of mines. There were 12 men in the squad. 7 got killed outright. 5 of us got blown all over the area, and I got blown away. I didn't get hurt. I got 11 wounds in my legs. That's where you get the scars from. I got one in my nose, a piece of steel. A piece of steel was in my shoulder. And what else could I do? So I figured, hey, I'm going to go home. Because after I got out of the hospital, I went to an ordnance, a camp for in Wales, England, to recuperate. And then I figured, hey, we're set. But then again, they had the Battle of the Bulge came along. And so they said, okay, you guys are going to go back to France with limited assignment. So I didn't have to do anything severe. This other fellow and myself were put on MP duty. And the reason we were put on MP duty is because we knew what a rifle was. The rest of the guys were just fresh, came over from the United States, and they wouldn't even know what the hell a rifle was. They were tire makers. They made strip cars of wheels and put brand new tires, recapped the rolled tires, and they did the cleaning up. And so that was the way it is. So I learned how to go. Then I had to learn how to drive because we were doing MP duty. And this guy told me, now you've been going around with me for a long time, now it's time for you to drive. And so it took me 45 minutes to learn how to drive because we had to move. We had a Jeep that we used, and going down the hill was no problem. You shifted into first, second, and third, and the car rolled very nicely until we got down where we had to go up an incline. And what happened was I would stall the Jeep and we rolled back. Now, there was a main highway that was from Reims to Paris where the trucks used to come by carrying merchandise to Paris from Reims. And those trucks would go by zoom, like there was no tomorrow. And so every time I'd get up there, a truck would be coming and I would stall and roll back. So it took me 45 minutes to get the feel of the clutch. And once I went over the mountain or the drive, and I knew how to drive and keep it in gear, and I didn't stall the motor, I knew how to drive. And the guy says, hey, now you know how to drive. You drive the rest of the day. That was it. What else could I do? But I learned how to drive, and so therefore I drove all over France, Germany, Belgium, and Holland to deliver merchandise once we got, because we were in a motor pool. What else could I say? And then we went home. November 11th, 1945. The war was over, and we went home. Okay.
Well, when you got wounded in the minefield, didn't someone save you? Didn't like a general save you?
Oh yeah, well no, I was laying on the side of the road, and General Patton came down the side, and he saw me laying there. So he said to someone that was in charge of the medics, get this guy to a hospital now. And so they sent me to a hospital. And that's where I recovered. So I spent a month in the hospital. And once I recouped, then I went to this training camp or a place in Wales for another couple of months. And then from there, I was scheduled to go home, but they had the Battle of the Bulge.
Oh, it's all right, I know. So you were first drafted in 1943?
Yes.
And you went home in 1945?
Right. 1945, so I was in this service 45 months. No, wait, how many months?
All right.
35 months. Right.
So when did you get the Purple Heart?
But I got wounded.
You get the Purple Heart in the minefield?
They gave me a Purple Heart when I was in the hospital. And
what is a Purple Heart? What is a Purple Heart?
yeah, medal.
It's a metal heart?
Yeah. And I got one, it's in my jacket. You could see a small version of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Right. Well, thanks you.
So I got a disability rating.